Travis. There it is. Okay, let's pray together. Father, we're grateful you give us a chance to come together again, friends, some family, and some maybe we don't know today. And we ask that you would bless each one that's here, whether they are trusting in you or not, that maybe they'd see a little glimpse of the beauty of this text and of you. That's always my goal, but also to think clearly and carefully and with wisdom. So help us as we go through this, talking about redemption, salvation, and that stuff. So we need your help in your name. Amen. Mm. Okay. Let's do this. Let me see who's here. I can't see everybody on my pages. All right. Okay. We are talking about redemption probably for the last week. I mean, we'll talk about redemption many more times in our life, I'm sure. But as part of our main topic, I am planning on starting to talk about politics next week. I have been working on it and reading like crazy. We'll see where it goes, what's going to happen there. But this week, we're going to try and finish up redemption. Sugar. Sorry, I have to take control of this here because Travis is doing other things. Okay, thanks. All right, so we're talking about redemption. I'm sure all of you took copious notes, but don't look at your notes right now. All the brilliant things that you wrote down at some point. So this has been like 6 to 8 weeks we've been talking about this stuff. So give me an image, a word, a verse, something that stayed with you, something that made you think about this a little bit differently maybe. Or maybe it's just a reminder and it just excited you over again. Anything been helpful at all?
Uncreation, recreation.
All right, Carly, you got your wording first, so say it again.
Uncreation and then recreation.
Okay.
That whole idea of like what the cross, how it fulfilled the narrative from the Old Testament.
Yeah, I love that. I love that whole story there, that uncreation, creation idea. All right, Brad, what did you say? Repossession, maybe?
Repossession, yeah.
Yeah, that's a word that stays with me too. Possessing again. All right.
Ransom,
yep. Yeah, that Mark verse that Jesus came not to be served, but to serve and to be a ransom for many. That's, powerful word. Lutron. Redeemer, yes.
Kinsman redeemer, yeah.
Oh, kinsman redeemer. Okay.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
The Goel. So we got the Lutron from ransom that Jay was talking about. We got the Goel or Gaal from Josh's kinsman redeemer there, mainly in Ruth, but for sure is a theme throughout. There was another Hebrew word, padah, which has the same kind of connotation, very similar to lutron, that loosing or releasing, or repossessing, all that. Anybody else?
One of my favorite parts was the connection of Christ redeeming people by forgiveness and by healing, how that's connected when they ask him, what are you going to do? What's easier to say your sins are forgiven or to say get up and walk, and how those two are meshed together. And both of these things are freeing you from your bondage.
I know. I feel like that's a rather new idea for me just in the last couple of years, honestly. So that's exciting to me as well. Yeah. It's really the same thing, saying the same thing. You've been forgiven or released, or freedom. We sang on Sunday, freedom. That David led us in. It's awesome. Thanks, David. So redemption, this idea is a transfer of possession from wrongful ownership back to its rightful place. I think we've been saying that pretty consistently, right? Transferring possession, that's why Brad called it a repossession, from wrongful ownership back to its rightful place. So we have that Gaal, we have Padah, we have Lutron, we have all these different things, these different major words that are showing up there, and they all mean something like purchase or transfer or repossess or reclaim or recreate, right? All these concepts here. So we talked about Ruth And Boaz, we talked about the Exodus, the Passover. We talked about um, the year of Jubilee, the cities of refuge, Isaiah chapter 40, especially, and through 54, that God is the cosmic Goel, not just Ruth, Boaz language, but that he redeems Israel from Egypt. And that's all this kafar, this covering. He atones, that kafar word there. And that exchange that he's making, it's costly, it's real, it's value. He's not necessarily giving something, which we're going to talk about again today. He's not really necessarily paying something to them, but it has that idea of value in that he gives his life. And that's what we're going to really, that's what we got to tackle. But we also did Psalms. Final enemy in Psalm chapter 49 specifically was that death character. Death becomes personified. So we're going to see that again today, because death is the one that has the grip on it. And then we spent a long time in Luke walking through each of these passages where Israel or the disciples are expecting a new Moses, a new David, and Jesus is going to redefine what it means to deliver people out of Egypt. He's going to deliver them from a new Pharaoh, a new idea there. And then Romans, Paul's going to grab all that together with Romans 3, Romans 6, and say that these slave masters, we've kind of given over our authority, our honor, the things that we honor, we've given it over to the dark powers, right? So we've what he calls idolatry, or the Old Testament called adultery, constantly. We've got a new master. We've fallen in love with this new master, and now Paul's going to talk about it when you get to like 1 Corinthians 15, how he goes into death in order to pull us out of death. So that's what we're doing. So redemption is repossession, reclaiming, and so if you were to talk to somebody and they said, "Tell me what salvation is," could you say that in a couple of sentences? Or, tell me what it means for Jesus to be a redeemer. You guys always talk about Jesus as redeemer. Do you feel like you'd be able to give them that story in a few sentences?
Yeah, that we are not our own. That we are bought with a price, and what that means is that we are either slaves to sin or slaves to righteousness. And so when we submit to God's authority and God's will, we become new creations in Christ, and we ask for His will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And this is where we get to experience salvation.
Okay.
It's probably a terrible joke.
And what is that?
Being saved from myself, saved from sin, and brought into something new. So doing away with the old, the patterns of behavior, fear, that drive lies, that drive actions, in coming alive in Christ, being driven by faith instead of fear. Don't ask me what that is again.
All right.
It's Socratic mental.
All right. Anybody else would be able to say it differently, or?
I think I feel like I sound super new agey every time I try to describe it, because I don't know why. But I think most people would agree that something about humanity is broken. There's fear, there's pain in our world, there's suffering. And Jesus was the perfect human who allows us to become the humans that humanity was meant to be. And there's a spiritual transformative process, there's a physical transformative process, but it's allowing ourselves to submit to what He wants to do in creating us as true humanity instead of working by the world's paradigms.
Okay. I like the true humanity language. Good. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to take a stab? I feel like I'll never again explain to somebody what salvation is without using words like transfer of possession, or that reclaiming kind of concept. I don't think I can really do it justice without saying that mankind intentionally gave himself over to other masters, and but that God owns us, right? Genesis 1, God owns us. Genesis 3, we handed ourselves over. Genesis 12 and on, rescuers, right? Let's rescue here, let's rescue here, let's rescue here. And it's all been about delivering us out of bondage and slavery and all that stuff, and buying us back. Not necessarily paying a price, but buying us back. There is a price to be paid, but not in that. I don't think I could do it otherwise. So here's my question then. All right. So assuming all the stuff that we have, how exactly does this death and resurrection thing that Jesus did, how does it accomplish redemption? Like what is it that's happening here? How does redemption work? So if God owes, and I think this is fair, God doesn't owe death something. Death has gotten us, right? That's the Genesis 3 story. Death has gotten us. We've been exiled. We're out of connection, right? We've been exiled, right? And if death has us, he doesn't need death's permission to get us back, right? He could just, he's God, right? He could just like, they're mine, bah, right? And then death gets, right? But he chooses to do this. So he doesn't need death's permission. So why doesn't he just go, you're mine, right? Why does Jesus have to go through this at all?
Because he doesn't care for us to be robots. That's what self-will is. He designed us with self-will.
Okay.
So there's a price to be paid for justice to be done for what we've done wrong, and he pays the price and declares us covered by the blood.
All right, that's a whole lot of Christian language, and I think I agree with everything you said, but only if I define all of those things in a certain way. Like covered by the blood, that's like a metaphor, right? We're not really covered by any blood. There's a price to be paid. Yeah, but he's not really paying a price, not literally. So all that metaphor, I'm just asking, why? Why does he have to pay that price? Why does he have to give that blood? Why can't he just say, I forgive you, you're mine, give him back because I'm stronger, and then say, all right, do you accept my forgiveness? I mean, then it could still be a will thing, right?
How about because that's what we understand?
That's actually a really, I think that's a really good answer. It's a way to explain it to us because of our years of history of myth and ritual and the way we got it. Is that what you're trying to say? Like, it makes sense to us. That's probably pretty fair. Yeah.
There's some people that believe that Jesus didn't have to die. He was killed. But then God showed that death can't win, and he raised him from the dead.
Okay. Yeah. So the death wasn't necessary, actually, not ontologically. It wasn't actually necessary, but so God was just showing that he had done it after the fact. Like, he got killed. I'll raise him from the dead.
Is there a removal of the consequence piece?
Yeah.
Like it's not just buying us back, but it's a stripping the consequences off of us by his death and resurrection. So if he, as the perfect human, lives out the human experience flawlessly all the way to death, which is what we deserve, then it's not just about being stronger, it's about having survived death.
Mm-hmm. So
And
true
in
humanity.
Yeah. He leads the way for us to survive death.
Okay. Yeah.
But we have to do it his way.
Okay.
So we'll take up your cross part.
This is good. So I think Tom, Carly, Lori, Dad, you guys Yeah, I think all of those are actually really good answers. So let me just tell you, let me just give you a few things to think about along with what you're talking about here. Gregory of Nazianzus, 4th century. If you've never heard of him before, no big deal. It just means you haven't studied history of theology, which no one in the world has except for super nerds. All right, so Gregory of Nazianzus is this guy, and he has this quote that is pretty well known. He says, "Whatever is not assumed cannot be healed." Okay, and he's using Hebrews chapter 2, 14 and 15 to help us think through that. So let's look at Hebrews 2, 14 and 15. Thinking whatever is not assumed. When I say the word assumed, don't think, well, I assume that you're telling me the truth. Assumed is like Jesus assumed a body in order to come, right? He assumed. So whatever is not incarnate, whatever is not grabbed a hold of in that same way cannot be healed. Okay, so 2, 14 and 15. Somebody want to read that one?
It says, therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death, that is the devil. Verse 15, and might free those who through fear of death were subject to slavery all their lives.
All right. So let's put that into words that we understand. No Bible speak. What's it saying? The Son shared in their humanity. Okay, so he became human so that through his death, he might disempower the one who had the power over death. So that his humanness overpowers and disempowers death, or Satan, the one who has the power over death, right? That is the devil, he says. So we could set free those who, for their whole life, were slaves to the fear of death. So everybody who's afraid of death, we no longer have to have fear of death anymore. So Gregory of Nazianzus is saying, yes, God can do this, right? And he can fix things, temporary fix. But if he wanted to heal permanently, he had to bring creation into the unending life of God. That is, God has to join himself to creation in order for him to do this. He can't observe suffering from a distance. He had to bring in there. He had to enter it. He had to carry it. He had to bring it through the other side. So redemption is rescue from the inside, not rescue from above. And we talked about that last week because I remember talking about him diving into the fire pit and coming out. I've seen things about jumping into monsters and then cutting their way out from the inside, exploding that which is out on the outside. That's Nazianzus' idea there. So, all the people that Jesus heals, they all end up dying, right? He heals the paralytic, he ends up dying. He heals the bent over woman, she ends up dying. The healings, the signs, all these things are pointing to something a lot deeper. And what's needed is for somehow death's effects to be permanently removed. Those are all temporary removals of death's effects. You need something more. Yeah. So that's the theological argument, or a theological argument. You have to go inside. You have to become that in order for it to do it, and then take it out from the inside. So basically, you have to let death take you. So if you think about, the wilderness taking the sheep, the goat that's sent out, the scapegoat out into the wilderness, it takes it, death grabs hold of it and brings it out. Okay. It's only through death grabbing hold of him that he can explode death. Okay. Now, I don't know that really answers the question. It's a theological reasoning. You could still say, yeah, but why? Right? I understand. But that humanness of the whole thing, you have to become.
It's like asking, why do we die? I mean,
yeah,
it's in a sense, what's the reason? Why do we die? And
well, you know the answer to that, don't you, Josh? Let's go back to the garden. If in the day that you do this dying, you will die.
Yeah. Yep.
So we die because our foreparents decided they wanted to do it their way instead of God's way.
Yeah, it's breaking the curse, right? There's a curse of
Yeah.
death.
I mean,
Yeah.
and you think about the passage where it says, if the rulers of this world, if they had known, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But God's escape plan, God's recreation plan.
Yeah.
Yep,
It's good.
that's good. Yep. All right, so that's my answer number one, Gregory of Nazianzus. My answer number two is, I wrote it like this: God can take Israel out of Egypt, right? We know he did that. But he has to take Egypt out of Israel too, right? So there's a different step that has to be. So yeah, he can snap his fingers, he can give you the freedom that you want, but he needs your desires to shift. So there's something about how you, which is kind of what Tom might have been saying in that little bit there too, right? Like it's up to us. There's still a will that has to change.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we get freed, but we're still enslaved in some sense to death. Jesus has to repent for us in that case, and our repentance is accepting his repentance anyway. So the problem is that God doesn't want to simply override humanity. So Israel leaves Egypt, and then what? How many weeks later? I don't even know how much time later, right? They're like, "Yeah, we're ready to go back. Let's go back. It's better there. Like, let's at least think about it. How about we vote?" Okay, everybody wants to go back into slavery. Slavery was better for them. So you can remove someone from slavery. You just can't automatically remove the slavery from them. They're always going to be feeling like that's where I belong. That's where I'm supposed to be, because they don't remember the Genesis 1 world of how abundant it can be, how beautiful it can be. So the heart has to shift. The desire has to be reoriented towards God. And I think that's what this redemption, this eternal redemption requires. And that's what Jesus does on our behalf.
In a practical way, you can look at an abused woman going back to the abuser, or
Yeah.
you can look in. I just literally got done with a guy who has he had, past tense, such a low self-esteem and view of self-worth. He would project that onto others and make sure they felt unworthy. So he was just going around punishing people, but until he realized he's saved. Well, be careful with that word here in this session here, but he loves Jesus and he's actively following Jesus and being a minister of reconciliation or harmony rather than chaos. So those are just practical ways. But why do we return back to the misery? Or it's because it's comfortable, because it's all we know. It's
It's known. Yeah.
Yeah, it's known. It's a pattern of behavior.
Yeah, good. The third thing I was thinking is like the difference between redeeming, like we talk about like God redeeming our bodies, or we talk about God redeeming our souls. We like to talk with that kind of language, but again, that Christianese language isn't helpful. I just want to remind all of us that he's redeeming far more than our souls, right? Which just means life. He's redeeming our life, but he's redeeming our bodies, and not just our bodies, not just individual people. The Bible is most often talking about redemption of all of creation, right? There's a whole lot more going on than just our bodies. So if you remember Romans 8, which we touched on before, the anxious longing of creation, right? Waiting eagerly for the revealing of the sons of God. Remember that passage there? You guys will remember how it goes, I'm sure, because somebody's looking it up right now. Chapter 8, verses 19 and following, maybe all the way up to 23. Creation being subject to futility, that one. 8:19 through 23.
I can read it if that's what you're looking
All
for.
right, go. Yeah.
Verse 19, for the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility.
Keep going, all the way through 23.
Yep, through 23. Verse 20, for the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who has subjected it, in a hope that the creation itself will be set free from its enslavement to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning together as it suffers together the pains of labor. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies.
Nice. So the redemption of our bodies, right? The goal is not just disembodied spiritual presence, floating spirits that can't touch a harp. We got to be able to play our harp someday. So bodies are important, or for whatever else we need them for, right? It's the full repossession, not just of our bodies, but everything of what God made. Creation itself, physical bodies, everything. So Jesus's resurrection is proof of concept, right? He's the first fruits of the resurrection. So he has to go through this so that he can be the one to take us through it as well. He's like, look, see, it works. Follow me, right? That's what's going on there.
I see 1 Corinthians 15 too, right? It says, so also there's a resurrection of the dead. It is sown a perishable body. It is raised an imperishable body. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown in a natural body. It is raised in spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. That's the key.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So if Gregory is saying whatever has not been assumed cannot be healed, right? How does Jesus joining himself to our condition make his rescue different from God simply overpowering things from the outside? Does that change things in the way you think about it? That he has to do it from the inside out? Or has that just kind of always been, yeah, I got that. That seems reasonable.
I feel like it includes us in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's joining us.
Right.
Yeah.
It gives true purpose where otherwise there's futility, maybe existential crisis. So yeah, I mean, it really gives meaning to life in a real rich way to someone who's really struggling with purpose and stuff like that, teleology or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. They have a goal now. Yep. Good.
Yep.
It makes me think of the superhero who, maybe Captain America has the muscles, right? He gets in the contraption, whatever, but he doesn't realize who he could be until he's placed in a difficult situation, right? And there's the redemption is so instantaneous for us from dark to light, but there's the walking out of becoming the sons of God, of becoming the children of God, and becoming living the life the way Jesus lived. So he encounters all the fear, all the pain, all the suffering that we do, probably even more so than many of us ever will, right? Enduring the cross. And he says, despite all of that, here's the way to go. Like, we walk forward in love because that's true humanity. And that's the good life. And so he shows us how to do that, even though we have to walk out the crucible on this side of heaven. But he's leading the way forward. Like you said, it's the, I've got it, come follow me. But he's showing us as selfish, emotional creatures that, he gets that. He gets the pain. He gets the suffering. He gets that. And we can follow him into it because there is glory on the other side. He's shown that it can be done in a human body and achieved on the other side.
That's good. Yeah. All right. So with that last verse that we were just reading in Romans 8, creation is groaning. How does that affect your view of the physical world? And if you know that God intends to redeem bodies and creation and not just souls, does that make you see it differently? Creation itself is groaning, and he's freeing creation. Not just pulling you out of slavery, pulling the whole world out of the grip of Satan. It's just a cool concept. You feel like the whole world is in chains, and he's just breaking these chains.
But without universalism?
Yeah, I mean, universalism may come that's not an automatic assumption from him breaking the chains around the world, I hope. Well, actually, I hope it is, but I don't think it is. Yeah. Okay, so all right. So let's talk about this blood thing because Tom used the blood of the lamb kind of thing. So when you hear redeemed by the blood of Christ, what is the blood doing? Is the blood a payment, a price, a bribe, something else?
In Jewish thought, it's symbolic of life itself.
Okay. All right. So he's paying a
And
life.
that's,
Is it price?
yeah,
Atonement, maybe? I'm thinking atonement.
Okay.
all of those sacrifices that they did in the Mosaic Law
Yeah.
were blood based.
Yep.
Well, not all, but almost all.
It's a transfusion.
Okay. So giving blood from one to another, kind of, to give life. Taking out of one and giving another. That's a cool way of thinking about it. Yeah.
His isn't corrupted. It's not subject to the curse the way ours is.
Right. That's right. Yeah. True humanity.
Yeah.
Passover. I can never read things fast enough when people write them.
Yeah, Travis I was thinking kind of along the same line, Travis, the blood on the door, marking where the death angel wouldn't go there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about that death thing. I mean, we've talked a lot about the death angel, right? We did a whole series on the destroyer, this creepy, scary thing that God sends out to do, but seems to possess them. It's a weird thing, anyway. So let's jump into 1 Peter 1. 1 Peter 1, just to give you a little bit of context. This is written to the suffering believers across Asia Minor, right? Which is going to be mostly Gentiles. They've left their religious world behind at significant social cost to them, of course. And Peter wants them to understand what you have is worth more than what you gave up. So that's what he's trying to do when he says, you were not redeemed. Go ahead, somebody else. Is that word redeemed? You were not redeemed with perishable things, right? Somebody got it?
Looking for the verse.
You said,
You didn't give us
you said 1 Peter 1, but you didn't give us the verse.
Oh, sorry, 18 and 19. Sorry.
That
might help.
I
Like
expect all of you to
silver
know what it is, even though I did all the work ahead of time. Yeah.
You can read your mind. Like silver and gold.
Yeah, that one. Yep.
Yeah, from your futile way of life, inherited from your forefathers, but with precious blood, as of the Lamb, unblemished and spotless, the blood of Christ.
All right, so I don't know why that line in there just kind of grabbed me differently this time when I was reading it. Yeah, you're not redeemed with perishable things like silver or gold, of course. No, so God didn't have to pay gold. You have to okay, here's $100, I get them back. Yeah. But what was it from? You were redeemed from your feudal way of life inherited from your forefathers. That was an interesting line to me. Not the first time I ever thought about it, but maybe just thought about it anew this time. Like the inherited patterns of my dad and his dad and his dad and his dad. The cultural defaults, maybe. Right? The things that we all just automatically do. Multi-generational ways of being human. So, like, if we have the Pharaoh language, like we're thinking about the Exodus, the Pharaoh here is the entire way of life that keeps cycling back towards death. We all just keep going back. Because what Josh was talking about was like, we keep going back. We keep going back to the abuser. And we all have those, that inherited way of life from our forefathers that we don't know how to break free of. It's just part of who we are. So, like, death is personified, but death doesn't want silver and gold. It can't be bribed, right? So silver and gold, of course, they can pay off all kind of, they can pay off debts or obligations or something that's owed, transactions between equals in some sense. But this blood, with the precious blood as of a lamb, unblemished and spotless, the blood of Christ. That's a life that isn't ours, doesn't belong to us. Um, the blood of Christ is declaring to death, this isn't yours, right? You can't have this. It's saying, it's holding back the destroyer that we were just talking about, the death. Right? It holds it back. It says works. It works because death has no claim on a blameless life, which is what Carly was saying, like true human. Right? There's a blameless life here, so death has no power over this. So this is Passover logic, right? Lamb's blood is not a payment to Pharaoh or to the destroyer or anything like that. It's a declaration that this household belongs to. That you can't make a claim on this household. It's mine, right? You can't come in here and get it. So it holds it back. The destroyer comes to take back what's his. That is those who are enslaved to death. If you saw the Facebook post I posted there, you see a bunch of ghosts surrounding somebody doing kind of a Doctor Strange thing, making a big portal or something like that, doing the magic. But because they've been possessed by death, and he's grabbing them back because they have no rightful claim on them. So the destroyer passes over those houses. Like, I was about to grab hold of them, but death has no claim on them. So nope, I can't do it. I don't have any right to this.
It's like a protection.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. That's the blood protects. So again, I think the key here is, for at least I'm trying to make, is Jesus isn't paying off death. He's well, everything I said, I don't need to say it anymore.
Yeah.
It's not paying off death. So Hebrews 9. Okay, go ahead.
It's interesting, Jace. I was looking at the word futile in 18 there. It has the idea of idle, empty, fruitless, useless, powerless, lacking truth. That's a lot of stuff to get set free from.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that would preach pretty well, wouldn't it?
It might. So why wouldn't you want to get set free from all that stuff?
Yep.
Purpose-driven life.
There you go,
yeah,
Jeff.
The real purpose-driven life, yeah.
The real one, yeah.
So if you go back to Hebrews 9, I think we touched on that last time, right? The Day of Atonement thing. The high priest goes in and he enters into the most holy place where the blood of bulls and goats, etc. And it's a real ritual. It's meaningful. It's symbolizing. It does all the things. But remember, it has to be done every year. So Hebrews is going to say the last words of the Hebrews verse 9:12 are the words eternal redemption.
Yep.
It does say that.
Eternal redemption. So I wanted to make sure we brought that up too. It says, if you don't have it, find it. I'm sure you've got it though. Hebrews 9:11-12. When the Messiah appeared as a high priest of the good things that are coming, he entered through the greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands. That is to say, not of this creation, and not through the blood of goats and calves, but through his own blood he entered the holy place once and for all, having obtained eternal redemption. So this is that word lutrosis ionion. We've heard lutron a lot of times, lutro, right? So that's been luo and tron together. This is that word, and ionios, eternal, or to the end of the age. Doesn't really necessarily mean forever and ever, but to the end. The problem is that all the other stuff was temporary, but this one is final.
Yep.
So it never has to be repeated because it's accomplished what the Day of Atonement could never accomplish, a permanent transformation of the heart.
So can you understand this completely without understanding the Leviticus and the idea of atonement? Do we need to look more into that as Christians, Jewish idea of what it meant for them to go into the Holy of Holies, for them to make the sacrifice, the sacrificial system, I guess?
No, I don't think we have an understanding what holiness is without Leviticus. But
Okay.
I don't think we have to know necessarily all the details of Leviticus in order to understand what holiness means. Like, I think we could summarize Leviticus pretty easily without trying to figure out every one of the feasts and every one of the guilt offerings and sin offerings and all those things. Because I think the New Testament is reimagining Leviticus.
Can you do that for me real quick? Because I work with kids. I mean, maybe you don't have to, but I want to be able to,
to summarize Leviticus.
No, I mean,
sure, right.
Like a 5-year-old, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
for my IQ, come on.
Leviticus is the idea that contamination spreads, right?
Yeah.
And that we need to deal with contamination. We need to make sure that things that are that there's some sort of a blockade, so that we absorb that contamination in some way. So we have certain rules, certain rituals in order to set free. Holy space is being cleansed. Yeah, that's what Travis says, right? So we're looking for those things to move in. I don't know how deep to go into that, but right. So there's holy, and then there's whatever you want to say, dirty, right? And so what we're trying to do is move actually, it's probably better to say holy, common, dirty, something like that. Okay, so common things are not bad, but they still have to move into holiness. So they have to be in some way cleansed. They have to be ritualized. Something has to happen to make them. So you stay away from dirty things, carcasses, blood, bodily fluids, unkosher meals, etc. Those kinds of things. And then you just have regular things. These are regular things you can touch and be perfectly fine with. But what we're really looking is for things to become holy, to become set apart, cleansed. These are the temple kinds of things. And that's why, of course, we're always compared with being temple, where Jesus is the new temple, right? Where holiness, where all these other things become, are kicked out. So that's our goal, is to move into a state of holiness. That's why I'm always talking in church about transformation, about kingdom life, about Sermon on the Mount kind of worlds, about Jesus creeds. Because
I guess in a practical way, like there's patterns to get into there's holy patterns, there's constructive patterns to get into this holy place, as opposed to the unhealthy patterns that drive us away from God, or away from. I would say, like, can you help me understand what some of those patterns are? Like, obviously Jesus is a part of that, accepting Jesus in our heart or something like that. I'm just.
So you mean today, practical things?
Yeah, like what are the patterns that? Oh no, today, today, or like even in or maybe even Leviticus, but mainly today, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
caring for the immigrants, dealing with the oppressed, healing blind eyes,
being hospitable, yep.
Hospitality, turning the other cheek, walking an extra mile, taking the culmination of the law and the prophets, doing to others what it is that you would have others to do you. Like, I think that's moving from the world of common into holiness.
Uncommon, yeah, right.
Okay, so maybe I'm just slow, but I'm not understanding why blood is necessary. Everything Jesus says has to do with action, how you treat others, what you do. And I get that he defeated death, but why is this thing about blood cleansing us? His blood cleanses us. His blood does this. His blood does that. When Jesus talked more about our actions saving, rather than his blood.
There's no question.
Am I making sense? I'm really, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting the connection.
Yeah, here's how I would do it. So yes, Lori, Jesus, like the Sermon on the Mount is all about works. In fact, I almost called my next sermon next week, saved by works, because that is what Jesus seems to talk about.
Well, Matthew 25 too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean,
There you go.
we're talking about Matthew 7, that jumps to Matthew 25. So it's all about doing, yeah, it's all about doing, right? It's revelation.
The
Only
fruit
those
of
who
the
overcome.
Spirit. The fruit of the
Yes,
Spirit
revelation.
is actions. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But inside of that is this whole thing, right? Like what I think like the whole Bible is around this concept of what does life look like? Right. So I think Tom was I think in the even in that traditional evangelical way, I think this life thing is everything. So blood equals life. If blood is the symbol of life, then what he's doing is giving life.
Mhm.
He's giving life for life. And that would have been just like my dad would say, that's the symbol that they would have understood, right? One thing is given for another. It's put in the place of. So this whole idea of sacrifice, if you just think of it as sacrifice, I'm sacrificing my life, my everything. Obviously, we don't sacrifice our entire life now, but we sacrifice through works. Romans 12, right? So we are human sacrifices. We are so
Living sacrifice.
Yeah.
living sacrifice.
The first blood sacrifice was in the garden
Mm-hmm.
Right.
after they realized they were naked. They needed the covering, so a critter got killed.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not
So
persuaded that that's what Genesis is doing, but I do
Oh.
like that looking back as a cool preaching point. But yeah, I don't.
Oh, go ahead.
What was that?
I was just gonna say I have a really sciencey way to think about it because
Okay.
that's my field. So you guys know blood is blue.
Yes.
So it
So
oxygenation.
yeah, the oxygen is what makes it red. So in Genesis, when it says he breathed into him and he became a living being, his blood becomes oxygenated and he becomes alive. But there's so much memory stored in the blood, and so when like neurologists have actually used the verses about like curses following for generations, that if there's a big trauma in a family, because what is it like to the fourth generation for some things and the seventh for the other, certain traumas last as memory in your blood for that many generations.
Wow.
And I think if with your thing about life, like if the life is in the blood, if that's how Jesus made us alive, or how God made humanity alive in the first place, then our broken human blood will continue to replicate because we're co-creators. We will continue to replicate the brokenness forward from generation to generation in our DNA. And so I think it takes a transfusion of sorts. It takes an input of something that is not us in order to change the dynamic.
To break the pattern.
Yeah, like your little picture there, I just kept thinking osmosis. Like if you don't have to go from holy to bring common into holy, what you really need is holy to move into common. That's how osmosis works. That's how energy gradients work. But you have to have an input of something holy in order to move it in. Otherwise, it just balances and stays equal. You have to have a greater on one side to move into the other.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but that is what my brain thought of while you were talking about life in the blood.
So I didn't understand all of it. I'd have to sit down with it like in front of me and think through it. I don't think this is what the biblical authors are thinking, but I think this preaches well. Like it's a cool concept to make connections in our brain for it.
And it could be what God was thinking, and the biblical writers just didn't know what DNA was. So
I like what she's.
I've spent 5 years trying to convince people that that's not how the Bible works, so I'm not going to go with that one.
We've had this argument before, but God created science and God wrote the Bible. So at some points, I think they can.
Yeah, I just don't think God wrote the Bible. So that's we're just
okay.
Man wrote
I think
Bible.
the whole sacrificial system was in the zeitgeist of the time. So
yeah.
You're right.
That's what Dad was saying earlier. This is just part of the world that they lived in. It's how they understood what wisdom looks like. And so when Jesus comes, he jumped into their story.
So do we need to understand it that way?
If we want to understand
blood is necessary. I'm just being difficult, sorry. Okay.
No, you're not being difficult.
We get Jewish interpreters like Paul and Peter, interpreting with their Jewish lens. So, but also, real quick, while you're thinking, Jace, I wanted to say Carly's idea of holiness coming into common is it's not the idea that we're trying to get to God. The beauty of the gospel is that God came to us, and
Yeah.
that's this is the beautiful thing that we serve a God that chases us down or that comes to us, the prodigal God or whatever.
I think for some reason, Lori, I'm still not willing to let go of this as merely imagery that is good for a time. And maybe it's just something I need to grow into, but I'm thinking of like, it is that the stuff that Carly was talking about, that blameless human life given sacrificially, willingly, is what reverses death's hold. And so if there was nothing, if something didn't happen there, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but that's the mystical connection for me of what happens that Friday when he says it is finished, right? Like, and dark powers are like, and again, maybe it's just my overdramatic brain thinking movie, when he says that, I just see these like sound waves, these like nuclear, as it goes out, ripple effect from him all over the whole cosmos. And it was because the blood was shed. It wasn't just a cool image. It was a conquering, because there needed to be that sacrifice, that.
But it's a human sacrifice. And I get where the animal sacrifice is temporary.
Yeah.
But human sacrifice is also, I know there's a mixture of it in the Old Testament, but it's not typically allowed. And yet God sacrificed his son. I mean,
I would say it different. I would say Jesus gave up his life.
okay.
But yes, I think it's okay to say God sacrificed his son. I think the Bible actually uses that terminology itself. But it's him willingly walking in, right? Walking into it.
Yeah.
It's not that he was taken and abused. It was that he said, this is what reverses the curse on history. I'm in. So, and again, the myth for me is part of the beauty. And I'm thinking of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with White Witch kind of thing, right? Aslan's explaining why Edmund's, why he has to die for Edmund. And he says there's a deeper magic that the witch doesn't know anything about. It happened before the dawn of time, a blameless life, blah, 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 right? A blameless life offered willingly cannot be held by death.
Okay.
And that's just like, and this is just Lewis's way of understanding it. It doesn't somehow make it better or anything, but he's not paying the witch something that's owed. He's presenting debt to death as an entity. He's presenting to death a life that death has no rightful claim on. Death has a rightful claim on everything in the whole world, but doesn't have any rightful claim on that. So when death grabs hold of it, it's almost like it was suckered in, right? It was like the fish on the fish hook. It got it.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, this is not what I wanted. And right. And along with everything that life, that God sheltered in that life. So death, or the witch, overreaches.
Yeah.
Right. Tried for too much. And I know this is, I mean, that can still all work just as myth, as beautiful storytelling, and make it just as powerful. And maybe that's, again, just what I'm trying to make happen. But I think that overreach undoes her, or undoes death in some way. I wonder if the atonement theories help in this.
It's like,
they help make sense of it. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, what I was going to say is you're not going to like it. It's like Harry Potter and Voldemort.
Yeah, we're out. Nope.
The curse gets reflected, but that's that they rip that off from, like, that's where the concept comes from.
Curse gets reflected. See, I don't know that world. I only saw the first one and I forgot it pretty quickly.
When Voldemort tries to kill Harry Potter survives because he couldn't actually kill Harry Potter because of his mother's love for Harry.
Huh. Okay. Riston, we might have to end up watching this at some point. I don't know. Because we're definitely not going to take time to read it.
I would actually recommend that you listen to the audio. Jim Dale
Yeah.
does a phenomenal performance over all of the voices. He's a phenomenal presenter.
Okay, text me who that is so I can make sure I get the right book. Because I'd be willing to listen to that, not read it or watch the movie. I think I could do that while I was lifting weights or something. Okay, all right. So I did a terrible job answering the question, Lori, probably because I don't really know the answer. I'm just playing in a field that's beyond me. It's kind of like communion for me. Like, I'm still convinced there's something that happens there. That it's not just a mere ritual. There's something mystical that happens. And I probably just want the mystery. I don't know that I can prove it textually, but there's just something bigger than myself, bigger than man's empty rituals and myths. And I know I go the other direction on so many other things, so I'm probably not being consistent. But yeah, that's part of being human too. So sorry.
Yeah, as I say, that's all of us.
Yeah, inconsistency is. Yeah. Problem is, I find that in my theological studies all the time. I'm like, this is so inconsistent. I don't have the time to work to try and figure out how to make it consistent again. Like, so I'm just stuck with my old view because it takes too long for me to change it. So, somebody was going to say something before I jump into atonement theories as our last bit.
It's funny to me that as evangelicals, we're totally fine with a supernatural creation narrative. We're totally fine with a supernatural atonement theory. And yet, when it comes to the bread and the cup, it has to be symbolic. The end.
Right.
Because it stopped. At some point, the magic stopped. Yeah, I'm with you. I think something happens.
So more consubstantiation, huh, Lori? Carly?
Yeah, I know. It gets messy, but something. I just think like Jesus came in a physical body for a reason, and he made our physical bodies for a reason. And I think keeping our spiritual stuff over here and our physicality over here doesn't serve us.
I agree.
I can't explain it.
You made a really good point, Carly. Yeah.
I haven't, like Jay said, there's no text, I guess I can't but it makes more sense to me that way than to keep everything divided out. I don't know.
All right. Here's our final 15 minutes on redemption. We're just going to mention these different theories and see how they fit into our 6 or 8 weeks or whatever we did on this whole thing. So the number one theory, I don't know if it's the number one theory. The number one on my list is Christus Victor. Okay. Oh, here we go. And I know we talked about these once. We're just summarizing them. We can't go into a great detail. But Christus Victor, which just means Christ is victor, of course, right? It's just Christ, he is the victor in this. And it has to do with Christ's death and resurrection being the victory over the powers of sin, death, devil. That's what's going on there. So again, humanity is enslaved to by hostile powers. The cross breaks the domination, and the resurrection seals the triumph. Okay. So atonement, these are atonement theories. Okay. You can say this means at, one, meant, but it doesn't. That's just a cool English word. This atonement is like the word kafar, and it means to cover. Okay, in some way, it's a sense of how does the blood cover? What is it covering? What is it doing here? Okay, and so this is the first one, and this fits really heavily into all the stuff I've been talking about. Right, it seems very clear that I'm a big proponent of Christus Victor in the way I've been trying to explain all of this. Hostile powers, Jesus reclaims them. Okay, the atonement is cosmic, that ripple effect that goes all the way out. It's not just a forensic legal accounting as penal substitutionary atonement will be. There's something else that's happening. Okay, so the second theory, you guys can throw any comments in anywhere you want. Second one is ransom. Okay, so normally it's called like the ransom to Satan theory, something like that. But I think the ransom to Satan theory has hit on such harsh times that no one holds to a ransom to Satan theory anymore. So like that would be the problem part of it, is that somebody has paid some sort of a bribe or ransom to Satan. The better way of thinking about this ransom theory is that it's a rescue operation that breaks the devil's grip without implying that God owes him anything. So it's a lot of this, but it does have some of that kind of that redemption language in here, that payment language. That it's not to Satan. It's more that metaphor idea, like there's something of value being given, life for life. So you'll find that in each one of these, I find a lot of beauty. Okay, all of these, I'm going to find some beauty in. So I'm just giving you the best versions of each one of these. All right, so the third one is the satisfaction theory. So this is Anselm's, this is what, the 1000s, what is that, 11th century? 1000s, is that how you say that? Year the thousands? I don't know what that is. So he says that sin is dishonoring to God. That's what sin is. It's when you dishonor God, and that Christ restores that honor with a life of perfect obedience. So he satisfied the rules of being human. If that makes any sense. So, we owe a lot of stuff. Christ gives it for us. So I mean, it's good because it preserves a lot of the very seriousness of sin, this omen, this debt that is on us, and that God's not indifferent to the debt, and so he has to live that perfect life, Jesus. All right. The fourth one is substitution. You grew up in an evangelical world. This is probably the only one that you know. Substitution. And there are a couple of forms of this. One is penal substitution, and the other one just isn't. It's not penal substitution. So the word penal just means punishment, right? So this is the punishment theory. So Jesus stands in for sinners, and the punishment that is due, that is the due thing. Can we talk about the theory that involves God allowing the evil of the, oh, doggone it, his mic's not working. Let me see. Can we, the world to be poured out on his people so that a watching world can watch and come to Jesus. It involves God allowing the evil of the world to be poured out on his people so that watching the world. I think your mic's going to have to be working for you to tell me more. I'll keep reading so you can keep explaining this a little bit more. I don't know which one this fits under, but I'm doing what Wright does, which is working with all of these five. So you have to help me out here. God allowing the evil of the world to be poured out on his people.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
I got
we
you.
do, Randall.
Oh, it's working now. Okay, so in Second Maccabees, there's this situation where it talks about the evil of the world being poured out on God's people. And in that way, they make atonement for the watching world. So it's almost like that scene in Lord of the Rings where Aragorn marches on the Black Gate in order to draw the evil out of Mordor to give Frodo free passage. It's a sense in which God allows his people to be magnets for injustice and suffering and pain in the world so that others who are watching the people take on that pain and suffering can become followers of Jesus. It's in his book.
Yeah, the day that, I know the theory. It's long before Wright. He didn't
Sure. I was just using Wright as a shorthand, but yeah. I was kind of just being a shitster, though, to be totally honest, Jace, throwing that in.
And that's why we love you,
Okay.
Randall. That's why we love you, buddy.
I don't know that it has its own thing, because if it does, I think that's just this. It's just substitution, right? Because this comes from the servant songs, right? So this is and Maccabees, of course, Second Temple literature in general, but the servant songs, I think Isaiah 53 and those and following, well, any of the servant songs, right? The question is, who is the servant that is, the one who is
Yeah, you're right.
crushed for our iniquities, that kind of concept there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, and the answer is, who is this servant? And the answer is Isaiah / Israel.
Right.
That is Israel, Isaiah as the representative, since he's a prophet of Israel. He's the servant in these things. Of course, we Christians, we say it's Jesus. Yes, it's Jesus, but not in Isaiah, right? Only as we look back on this.
Yeah.
So these are the ones who are crushed in order to atone for the sins of the world. In order for exactly what you said, so that people can see, and that will cover, like, they take the place of the rest of the world, just like the firstborn takes the place of the rest of Israel, just like the Levites take the place for the rest of Israel. There's always a substitution going on. So this is where, you might be in a shit stir or whatever, but that's where I was going to go with this piece right here. Right? That's all that is right there.
Fair enough.
My concern is this one is the penal side of this, right? That God is somehow punishing them in order, like there has to be some sort of justice. So he has to punish somebody. So instead he punishes Jesus.
Yeah.
That's very big in my world, in the Reformed Baptist or the Presbyterian, that world. And I'm just not, I just have some kind of just grates on me. There are some verses that Paul seems to talk about that may lead us there, but this just seems to make a whole lot more sense. That God is there is substitution taking place, an exchange taking place, but he's not punishing. This is just what happens in the world.
I guess I hadn't been exposed to that whole punishment idea. That actually grates on my nerves just hearing it myself.
I live in that world.
Oh,
it's crazy. And it took me a couple years grappling with it. And I called Jace like at 2 a.m. or something, and I was like, "Restorative justice!" And I just had this epiphany and an awakening of what it means for God to be restorative instead of punitive, which is it was a breakthrough for me. And I haven't been able to convince my strong evangelical Baptist homies. They're still stuff, but it changes the way we do Christianity, because you actually become, I think I see people become punitive in their actions with people they encounter instead of restorative, and it becomes a whole dogma that shapes how we do theology and how we treat people.
Yeah, I just was thinking that on the substitutionary point, Jace, that facet that the people of God can continue to be atonement rather than just simply being Jesus having atonement. That's the part that I feel like has been lost in evangelicalism, even on the point of substitution. I think they explain it primarily as substitution of Jesus, but they leave out the fact that God continues to work in the world that way through his people.
Yeah, as like moral exemplar, or that we're seen by being crushed. So that moral exemplar is the fifth one. So I think it works like this, right? So you get the servant songs, you get Isaiah or Israel, and Israel funnels down to Jesus. Jesus is the new Israel. So everything that Israel represents is found in Jesus, but it continues. And that's sometimes where I would love us just to get to here. It'd be pretty awesome if we get to this spot, just to the Jesus spot. But what we usually do is skip it, and we go from here to here and miss this whole New Testament beauty. But this is the people of God, right? Take up your cross and follow me. Or, Romans 12, you are sacrificed, right?
Living
sacrifices, living sacrifices. So this is supposed to continue through the people of God. They're supposed to continue to see our suffering, and in our suffering be atoned, be made new, right? So that they are brought in maybe a more mystical way than simply a moral exemplar, although, that's where that is. The cross reveals God's love and changes human hearts, discipleship, transformation, etc. Go ahead, Randall.
I think the big thing for me on this has become a real talking point with some of my patients, is the reality that they are suffering in the flesh, that they are remaining faithful to God, and that friends and family that come to visit with them are seeing the atonement that's occurring in their death. And so I think that's why I get so excited about that aspect of substitutionary atonement, because I think it's something that explains, well, doesn't explain, but it gives purpose in the midst of the suffering for individuals.
Yeah. And I think this is still the call, right? This is the call not just for people who are dying necessarily.
Yeah, right, right.
Whatever suffering you're going through.
Yeah.
So I spent my whole life preparing my church to suffer well. And then my whole world crashed on me.
Yeah.
And then I said, all right, I've been talking a big talk, but it's a totally different thing now to show you how to live in suffering. If you are going through a divorce, or you're being abused, or you lose a spouse in death, or a parent, or a dog, right? Like, just depending on how you're suffering, those things can show. Are you taking it out on God? Are you becoming, are you starting to say that he's trying to get back at you? Or are you showing Jesus beautiful through all of this?
Yeah.
That's atonement. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense for someone in Randall's profession or position. And then also the argument against God is usually suffering or evil, the problem of suffering.
Problem of pain.
Yeah, problem of pain. And with the beauty of Christianity and the beauty of Jesus is it brings what Randall was saying, purpose to the pain, purpose in the suffering. And so it's just this ironic thing that people are so vehemently against God or Christianity, because they're like, why would a good God have this evil and allow this evil and pain? And he's like, and you can just, with showing them, I think is the key there. And same with you, Professor Broadhurst, is that you can say it, you can talk it, but it's like when it happens to you, when you're in the place, when you're actually suffering, how do we respond?
Well, and to your point there, Josh, too, I think it's interesting, the individuals that me saying that to has been most effective with has been individuals who were hurt by the church, left the church, and now on their deathbed are trying to reconnect with God. And I get to explain to them that, I don't know that you ever really left God. You were just angry and were in a church that didn't know how to deal with it. You were angry, like in one particular situation, she was a pastor's wife and the pastor cheated on her multiple times. There's no church that I know of that has a restoration process for a woman that has suffered that kind of injustice at the hands of a pastor. So when she walks away from the church, she feels guilty, upset, and I'm like, no, no, no. That's not because you walked away from God. That's because you walked away from a church that didn't know how to handle that.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that we're dealing with, not on such a deep level as this woman, but just there's people who have not suffered like that woman and have left church. Yeah, it's actually it's a deep issue with most people I run into who are our age, and you can, I don't know, you can put an age number in there. I think the younger generation is asking the questions, this purpose question, because I think they have accessibility to things that we didn't, when we were younger, and they're seeing the futility of these things. Like they have almost everything that you can ask for, and they still are found wanting. So, anyways, I think we have, you can question this, but I think we have, as a generation, to redirect people who have been hurt by church and show them what true Christianity looks like. And it looks like picking up our cross and following Jesus. And this is why we come to Tuesday school and hear about this kind of stuff, so we can help our colleagues grow.
The only answer for suffering is relationship with Jesus. He's the only one who has successfully endured the worst of it. And so in our suffering, it's his proximity to us and our awareness of that does the transforming work in us, that uses the suffering to become something more. The atonement idea you guys are talking about. Like, he's not, what is it? Is it Hebrews that says he's not unaware? We have a high priest who's not unaware of our suffering.
Right.
Yeah. It's his deep empathy and understanding of it, and then our relationship with him that there's always comfort in this way of support groups, like for people who have been in like situations to ours, but Jesus having experienced all of it, yet without giving into fear, without giving in to self-protection, without giving in to self-promotion. He shows us the way forward.
Good word. Yep.
Well, I think it's important to like try and as best as we can, like reach out to those people and distinguish between the church and the institution that meets on Sundays known as the church. And like, while there's significant overlap, they're not always the same necessarily. And that it's okay to possibly let go of a institution that meets on Sunday, church, but continue to cling to Jesus and the broader church.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Tuesday school, that's why it started, right?
Probably in part, I suppose, but
I know, I think so.
No,
Yeah.
I
The
mean-
genesis of this beautiful group.
Didn't it start to talk about things you can't talk about in church?
yeah, that was a lot
That's probably a little bit.
Like suffering. Hey, I want to let you guys know that I die for each and every one of you, and I love you, and you know that.
I only die for a few of you guys. So
you know that. Definitely for me, right though, Jace?
yeah, for you, sure. Yeah. I should mention for you, Winston-Salem people. I told Amy that I would tell you that she is doing at the Haynes Mall on Thursday night. Let's see here. Hold on. I'll put it in a big word for you. Thursday night at the Haynes Mall food court, she's doing a little concert there. She and Dalton are doing a concert. So one of our own here, a bunch of you guys are in that area, Winston-Salem. So go see her and say hi. I hope we've stopped the recording at this point, but if we haven't, let's stop it now. Then you guys can keep talking if you want.